What happens when a private pitching instructor teaches your young athlete one technique, but then their team coach insists on them actually learning a different technique? We're going to explore this very common scenario and how it impacts your young athlete's development, confidence, and potentially even their playing time. Raising athletes, the things that causes all dads to go bald and moms to buy minivans, empowering parents to help their kids succeed. So this is definitely a common scenario. You probably have had your child experience it already, and that is your child is on a team where their coach is insisting that they play a certain way. This really impacts mainly pitchers and then hitters and then everyone else. And then what happens is their private instructor, though, they're teaching very specific techniques based on that individual. And it's confusing for that young athlete. It's definitely impacting their confidence because they're a little bit confused going back and forth. And then there's some fear involved. Will it affect my playing time if I abandon everything I'm learning with my private instructor just to cater to what the coach is asking me to do? It's a good question, and it's one that we need to explore a little bit today. Now, the first thing is there a right and is there a wrong? And I'm going to say right here confidently, I'm going to put it out there, there absolutely is a right and a wrong way when it comes to this particular scenario. I'll put one disclaimer. And the one disclaimer is that when your coach is also a very reputable, experienced private instructor, then he's going to bring to the table a level of expertise that you can definitely trust. Now, in other scenarios, this is a much more common scenario now that I'm going to talk about, is you have your child on a team where they're not a private pitching instructor. It could be that they played, but maybe they were an infielder, an outfielder. They weren't a pitcher. And you are having your child then take private pitching lessons to really refine and dig deep into his pitching mechanics. Well, in that scenario, what's the right and wrong? Well, it's wrong for that coach to arrogantly force a child to pitch a certain way based on his level of comfort and his limited knowledge on that particular position versus deferring to the expert. In this case, it's the private pitching instructor who has proven results and proven experience in that particular area of that particular sport. So there is a right and a wrong. Now, with the ever-growing popularity of travel sports and private instruction, we are seeing this become an issue for a lot of kids, for a lot of families, but also I'm a coach, for coaches as well. And so here's how I have handled that. Now, me, myself, I was a pitcher. I was a Division I full scholarship athlete. I played at a high level, got to play all over the place. And I also, when I was younger, received private instruction. When I was older in college, I even had opportunities to be taught by some of the leading pitching instructors, I'll say in the world. In fact, one guy who actually spent a lot of time with me, he's the longest standing pitching coach in the history of the MLB. So I bring a lot to the table. Now, for the kids that come on my team and that I am now coaching, now I have the ability to coach them. However, especially with new kids, I always have a conversation. My conversation number one with the parents and the kid: are you taking private instruction? 2, who are they taking private instruction from? And then I want to learn what their instructor is teaching them so that now I can sort of adapt what we're doing to what the kid has already learned. Because the game is hard and also it is expensive. And I want to respect both of those things. Now, as someone who's got the experience, I can definitely easily adapt to something else that the kid has been taught. And I want to make sure we're doing that, or else we're making it hard for the kid. If I'm going to teach something completely different than the child has learned, then he's going to be confused. It's not going to benefit me as a coach. He's not going to be able to contribute to the team as well as if he's focusing. We know the rules here, right? In order to become elite, it's 5,000 hours. If we cut into that, by now the kid has to learn something else, we're going to disrupt that particular process. So we've got to be very, very careful here. Now, let's deal with some of more of this real life scenario and some of the concerns that parents have. The concerns that I've heard a lot. Now, this is a subject that is heated. You go online, you go into Facebook groups, people are heated right now. And private coaches, they're worried about the long-term development and risk of bad habits. Ready? That's valid. That is a valid concern that these people have, because private instructors are dealing with the individual versus trying to teach to the masses. So it's not a pitch, especially pitching, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. You have to be able to teach to the young athlete. Private instructors are able to do that really, really well. So their concern is valid here. Second concern is that the team coach is focused on system consistency. So here's a great example. In softball, now also a little bit in baseball, but in softball, there's several different ways that you can teach a pitcher how to grip and throw a changeup. What a lot of coaches will do, they will learn one or they were taught one, and so that's easier for the coach and easier maybe he thinks for the kids. He insists on all of the girls learning this one particular type of changeup. The problem with this, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Learning different changeup grips for softball pitchers, there's a lot of variables involved. How tall is the pitcher? How large are their hands? Are they able to actually control the different types of grips? Do they have a natural pronation of the wrist? Like, there's so many complicated variables when it comes to what changeup grip a softball pitcher could have. For a coach to say we're all learning one means you don't understand all of that stuff, and you're willing to compromise quality for convenience, and that's not good for the kids, and that's also not good for the team. Now, another concern that people have is that players, they feel pressure and they feel confused. I've seen girls come on my team where they've experienced that before. And it's about people pleasers. And they're like, oh, whatever it is that you guys are teaching, I'll just do that. I don't think that's the right approach. I want to get to know the athlete. I want to know what's good for them, what they've learned, how they've learned, what are their strengths, then what are their weaknesses. And then we can determine, in the case of the changeup, are you throwing that changeup really, really well that you were taught in the past? Well, guess what? We're going to stick with it, because are you comfortable and confident? If they say yes, guess what? Then that's the one we're going to stick with. It's my job not to force our child to do something that they're not comfortable with. Simply, that's just my level of knowledge. It's about adapting to the child, to the athlete, understanding strengths and weaknesses. I remember that my calculus teacher when I was in high school, her name was Mrs. Bowling. Awesome teacher. She's famous for this one line. Anyone who ever took her class, she said the same thing about math, which can be hard. But she did say there's more than one way to get the cow into the barn. That simply means there's more than one way of doing it. So your only one way of throwing a changeup, that's not the only way. There's lots of different things. And again, like I said before, you got to be able to be educated and understand that child to know what's best for them. This is where, again, private instructors, in my opinion, take precedence over the coach's opinion about pitching mechanics. You know, if you're a coach and you're listening and you're mad at me right now, I need you to just let what I said digest a little bit. The pitching instructors are dealing with an individual athlete. Coaches, you're dealing with just the entire team, and you're trying to force consistency within a system. That doesn't help an individual, because all kids are different. Their abilities are different. Their physiques are different, and we need to be able to adapt to that individual to get the most out of that particular young athlete. Now let's think about what's really at stake here. Ultimately, this conversation, and in some of the Facebook groups, the arguments, really boils down to what's at stake. Now, here's the key considerations here. Number one, confidence and mental stress on the athlete. 2, risk of injury or inconsistency by constantly switching between mechanics. 3, short-term playing time versus long-term development. And 4, potential to lose the trust in both the coaches, trust in the in and from that young athlete. Now, here's a few questions that I'm going to arm parents with, that parents can be asking themselves to help them navigate this particular scenario. The first great question, and you can write this down for future reference, that these are questions parents can be asking themselves, is what's the athlete's long-term goal? It's important to understand what that long-term goal is, be self-aware to create an honest goal, because then you can run these scenarios through the filter of that goal and ask yourself, does this help my child fulfill his ultimate goal? Second question, who knows your athlete's body and style better? This is a big one. So you got this scenario, the coach is telling you one thing, the private instructor is telling you another. Use discretion here, right? You know your child really well. You're at their lessons. You're at their practices with their coach. You're at the games. You've observed. You know these individuals pretty well. You need to be honest. In your opinion, who knows your child's body and style better? Is it the private instructor or is it the coach? That should be a factor here. The last question that I suggest you ask yourself is, which method is based on individualized progress and science versus generic instruction? Now, we already covered that particular topic, but that's a really important one. So always just think through those three questions. That'll help you navigate that scenario to determine what's best for your young athlete. So what are the next steps? What are the next action steps for parents and for these young athletes? Well, first is navigating the conflict. It's one thing to identify. It's one thing for you to understand, all right, I've made a decision what's best for my kid, but how do you navigate the conflict now? Well, here's the first thing I recommend. Communication is key. Meet with the team coach privately and discuss the concerns. I would not create a public display because you're going to be putting the coach in an uncomfortable position where he's now going to defend his authority. You have to pull him aside privately and just have an honest discussion. 2, find common ground. There's a healthy compromise that benefits everyone involved, the team and the individual. Ask your child if this is asking the coach, ask if your child can stick with private mechanics as long as she performs. That sounds like a healthy compromise to me. 3, you can advocate for your child respectfully. I'm going to emphasize respectfully. Let the team coach know that you value consistency, you value long-term growth, you appreciate what they're doing and the investment that they've made into their child. Let them know that you are in fact advocating for them. 4, let the players speak. Oftentimes I see kids not advocating for themselves and parents are the only voice for their child. Encourage confidence, encourage leadership, encourage them to step outside of their comfort zone and share their concerns and share their questions with their coaches. That only benefits them long term and helps them to develop really important qualities as individuals. Lastly, stay aligned with the private coach. Make sure private training is documented, videos, notes, all these conversations. It's so important that you do that. The best way of documenting all of these things, honestly, get yourself the PGM Athletic Performance Planner. I actually have one, look, right here. Get yourself the PGM Athlete Planner right here. This is perfect, and it's designed for that very thing. One of the advantages of this is not just for the benefit of the child's growth, that they can refer to this, but now you've got actual proof and evidence of what your child's doing because, number 1, some coaches don't believe that kids are taking private lessons. Number 2, let's be honest, some coaches don't know everything. In fact, I'm going to argue, I'm trying to be nice about it, all coaches don't know everything. Coaches know something, right? But by documenting everything in your book, you get to document what drills they're doing, what specific elements of the mechanics of your child's athletic development is your private instructor working on. You've got details that now the coach can what? Use as reference, because maybe the child doesn't understand. Let's go back to that example I gave about the changeup. This has happened quite often. I'll ask the kids, when I get to the question of what other pitches they throw, I ask them, okay, I say, what's changeup? A lot of the kids, they don't know the names of the changeup. They just show me. So what would be great if they had this, we can refer back to the notes to find out what changeup they're working on, what drills they're doing right now to help them develop that particular changeup. That's awesome stuff. Now, once you have information, what happens? Everyone's aligned. The private instructor is aligned with the coach because of the information that is at hand. Honestly, I cannot recommend it any more than that. Lastly, let's tackle some myth busters. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. We're going to be myth busting as it relates to this particular topic. So, common myths. All great pitchers throw the same. That is a big fat that is not true at all. All you have to do is watch one game to see the opposing pitchers and realizing, holy cow, they're completely different. The second myth, the team coach always knows what's best. That is not true. The team coach, I'm not undermining you guys. You guys know a lot. You're invested into that particular community, and that's awesome. But no one individual actually knows everything. I think we need to be confident, but also have enough humility to understand that we don't know everything, and it's okay to defer to the experts. The next myth is changing your style to match the team is just part of being coachable. Now, coaches would say, oh yeah, that's truth. And that is a myth. That is not true at all. That's not the definition of being coachable. Another myth, as long as she's pitching well, mechanics don't matter. Please tell me that everyone knows that that is a big fat that is a myth. That is not true. Just because someone has displayed some level of result, even though they're doing everything wrong, doesn't mean that it's okay. So I think it's important for us to understand what these myths are, understand the correct way, all of us align, put arrogance aside, and realizing we're all doing this for the best interest of our kids, both today and tomorrow. And if we're doing that, and that's our goals as parents and as coaches, well, then we need to be a little bit more aligned with everyone that's part of that village to raise that child to be such a successful individual, both on and off the field. Here's some final thoughts that I want to leave you with you guys. Key points. Long-term development should always take priority over immediate conformity. 2, athletes need consistency. They need clarity. They need confidence. It's the 3 C's. 4, parents play a vital role in advocating for their athletes' best interest. We all have big dreams for our kids, but we have to make sure that they're realistic, that the kids are on board with it, and it'll benefit them when their playing is done, because what we do on the field is supposed to also help them off the field. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Raising Athletes. We are in this together. We're in the trenches together. We're doing this together, people. We can do it. The tide rises for all ships. I'm looking forward to building this community with you guys. So do me a favor. Share this with someone that you know who's also raising an athlete that would benefit from this particular community. Take care, guys.